I'm talking with Stephen Nasser. He's the author of My Brother's Voice, a book about a survival of the Holocaust many, many years ago. And Mr. Nasser, thank you for being with me. I do appreciate it very much. First of all, I've got to ask you this. What motivated you to write this book?
I was in concentration camp. What motivated me is my older brother, Andres. He was more mature than I, and he pointed out to me when I was a tender age, at age 13, he was 16, in Auschwitz and Mulder concentration camp. He pointed out how important is freedom and how important is family value. And since he died in my arms in the concentration camp, I kept my promise to him, and I lived up to it all these years. I spoke all over internationally and here in United States to schools, churches, synagogues, libraries and such, and promote the value of family value and freedom. And I kept it up as long as I can.
Tell me, I want to just ask you a few questions about this. Tell me what you remember when the moment that the Nazis came to your family home to take you and your family away to send you to Auschwitz.
That was a very hard moment even to remember it, because our family home we were torn away from. We were taken to Auschwitz, and in Auschwitz we were separated with my brother and my mom, my aunt, my little cousin. I watched them being massacred, not murdered, massacred in front of my eyes. My aunt was killed by the gun, the butt of a gun, and they crushed her head, and the little baby, he was murdered by swinging his head against the wagon wheel. I kept that a secret from my uncle, who survived fighting on the Russian front when he came back, and I refused to tell him what happened, even though he did ask me. I did told him that he should never expect them back alive, but refused to say what has happened. My uncle lived till 1996, and I kept my diary secret for 50 years. I delayed it, and only after he passed away I was willing to share it with the public. My first lecture, when I was invited, it was in Pahrump in 1997. And today, just about an hour ago, I just finished my 1071st lecture.
Tell me, how was it that you were able to survive in Auschwitz when so many people perished?
I believe it must be, of course, my best friend, God, and also I refuse to give in. I have an attitude which I have not changed, and I believe I have to keep on going no matter what. I don't believe in thinking of negative thoughts. I nourish the positive thoughts even from the camp, and also to keep my brother smiling. That's what he requested, and I keep on doing it. I speak every time, and I do know eventually I will join my family, my brother, my father, and my mother, and I do believe they keep watching me. So whatever I can, I do every day when I get up, and with the help of my wife, Françoise, because she has been with me every single lecture, and she is also my guidance.
How did your brother die?
I believe he had typhus, pneumonia, undernourished, and starvation, because he could not eat anymore. When I discovered him, what you call the dying room, and I tried to sneak him a few bits of food, he did show me under the blanket what he was covered with. He said, "My little brat," he always called me my little brat lovingly. He showed me a few pieces of bits, which was dried food he could not eat anymore. So, and he died just a few minutes afterwards when I discovered him, and we had a last hug. His beautiful blue eyes were open, and I begged him, "Please blink, say something." He couldn't. I was torn to pieces when I had to cover his eyelid with my 4 fingers, and that's when I lost my brother.
you talk like you're on a mission, and yet you say very plainly and clearly that you don't have any negative thoughts or revenge or hate in your heart about this. But when you go back and you look at how you were whisked away from your family home in Hungary, how you watched your aunt and the baby being slaughtered in front of your eyes, how is it that you cannot have any kind of hatred and negativity toward the Nazis and those people who perpetrated these crimes?
Well, that is not totally true. The ones who committed the murders, the Nazis, I have absolutely no forgiveness, zero. And there were a lot of them. But on the other hand, I do know, which I have visited also, people who resisted and they give their life because the Nazis murdered 11 million innocent civilians, 6 million of us Jews, 5 million non-Jews. And you cannot forget every one of them. So the ones who are guilty, I have absolutely no forgiveness. But I refuse to sink so low that believe that every human being who was born in Hungary, in Germany, or wherever, they are guilty. There are good ones and there are bad ones. I refuse to sink as low as the Nazis.
How do you view the people today who are in denial? There are people who say the Holocaust never occurred, or if the people did die, they were put in I heard they were put into these rooms to just wash lice off and things like that. That they were never gassed or anything like that, and they just died because whatever. But they deny. There are deniers out there that say the Holocaust, to that level at least, never occurred.
Of course, that happened to me. I experienced at least 4 times when I met with deniers, and I treat every denier the same way. First of all, I say to him, I said, it's a free country, it's a free world. You can say what you want. But let me tell you one thing. If you don't believe the Holocaust ever happened, probably you don't believe the sun gets up in the morning also. But let me tell you one thing. I refuse to let my mind go into the gutter to meet your mind. That I'm never going to do. Whenever you mature or you grow up, give me a call, and maybe then we can talk. And I cut him right off, and I tell him, I wish you good luck, keep on going, but give me a call whenever you realize how wrong you were. I refuse to give him a platform, and that makes them furious.
I'm talking with Stephen Nasser, the author of My Brother's Voice, How a Young Hungarian Boy Survived the Holocaust, a true story. When you look at today the state of Israel, what are your feelings about the state of Israel, and have you been there many times or not?
I have been there with my wife in Israel, and when I was there, I felt like I was coming home because it made my heart just warm me to know that we have a land. I wish we would have had it before the Holocaust, somewhere what we can call at home. And sometimes I feel kind of guilty that I did not go to Israel. I did go to Canada, but I was determined to go to the land of freedom, the Statue of Liberty, into the United States. But to me, Israel is the utmost, and it is a shame. I'm not going to get political, but it is a shame. People who are against Israel, whatever nations, overseas, whatever, they should be ashamed of themselves. They should look into the mirror, and they should try to have a straight understanding that those people who are over there, they're surrounded by complete animosity, and they want to destroy them, and it will never, ever happen. And I'm very, very proud the way they stand up for freedom and keep on fighting for freedom.
You know, the Holocaust occurred about 75 years ago, and today you look at the state of Europe. Europe has a history of anti-Semitism that official by the governments of the various countries, all of them at one time or another, unlike the United States, which has never had any official anti-Semitism as part of its foundation. Not that there aren't individual people who who aren't bigoted or anti-Semites or prejudiced, but it's never been an official policy of the United States, this government, to ever be anti-Semitic at all. And yet it has been the policy of countries in Europe for many hundreds and hundreds of years to be anti-Semitic. Today, after the Holocaust, and you and many have left, and after the death of 6 million plus Jews and the untold millions of others, you look at what's going on, and now we seem to have a resurgence of anti-Semitism going on in various countries, parts of Germany, but certainly in France, and certainly in parts of Denmark and elsewhere. And a lot of it, they've admitted Muslims in from various parts of the Middle East who have fostered and fomented this kind of anti-Semitism. I know recently that we have seen a huge exodus of many French Jews coming to Israel, as well as the United States and elsewhere. What are your thoughts about the current state of Jews and the status of Jews in Europe today?
Unfortunately, anti-Semitism has been around for centuries, probably for thousands of years, and that is the reason of people who are hypocrites, people who refuse to face the truth, and people who cannot settle within themselves, because love is much stronger than hate. How come they're full of hatred? I call them the bullies, the Nazi bullies. Unfortunately, we have bullies in schools today, like I talked about it, and I don't foster them, because these people, they have to realize we are all human beings. We are all worshiping God, whichever way you worship, and we are all God's children in a certain way. And when you are an anti-Semite or hate groups, you have to settle with yourself, and I hope you can sleep at night. If not, well, if you have nightmares, you are the one who invite them. We are not causing them. And if you are an anti-Semite or anti any particular religion, if you believe in God and believe in humanity and love between another, that is fine. But there are many sects. Again, I refuse to get political, and they should know who they are. Because when we are getting people here in United States, we are entitled to get them in because we are that's how United States was founded. But on the other hand, we try to help refugees and such. But we are entitled to know who we let in and who we don't let in. And nobody should tell us who we should let in. Anybody who would become a good citizen and they're willing to swear allegiance to United States, they are eligible. But it's up to the government who decide.
I got to ask you a very important question. Obviously, when you were whisked away from your home in Hungary as a 13-year-old child, people must have seen things coming. There must have been some kind of warnings out there. Some of the Kristallnacht and other things that had been occurring, giving some kind of a direction that this might happen, or at least maybe not as bad as it was, but certainly that something was stirring. And there were people who did leave at the time before they were taken to the camps. When you look at Europe today, and from your experience, from what you've gone through, not only in the war, but all since, do you think that it's wise for Jews in Europe today to immigrate and leave and go to Israel or America or anywhere else because of the threat of the anti-Semitism that occurs today?
Well, in a certain way, if they want to save their future family, and because of the political situation, I cannot condemn if they leave. On the other hand, I don't like to run. I like to face evil right ahead and try to fight them. If you want to do that, go to Israel, because over there you can fight anti-Semitism, not just anti-Semitism, but also people who believe in righteousness, and you can retain that. It's up to the individual. If you want to stay in Europe and you want to try to get a better situation, it is not easy. It's very hard. But looking at back what has happened before, that's why I say it on my shirt, never again. we say never again should not happen to any human beings, but unfortunately history repeat themselves. And some of the unions, European Union, again, I'm not going to make political statements, but they should look into it. And a lot of people should be ashamed of themselves the way they maintained, because people are very, very difficult. It is true that life is very, very simple, but people make it difficult. And the ones who make it difficult, they're a big group of anti-Semites, not just anti-Semite, they anti-anything. And we have to maintain the righteousness, and as long as we believe in it, wherever we are, in the middle of Europe, in the middle of Israel, in the United States, we cannot run. We have to make a stand. And even if our life depends on it, we should be willing to give our life for our country, the righteousness, and for human kindness.
I've got to ask you another very difficult question, because you mentioned a moment ago, people can leave, or they can stay and they can fight, or they can go to Israel and fight. Either way, during the before the Holocaust occurred, as people were being taken out of their homes, there were some people that fought. The Warsaw Ghetto, they certainly did resist, and of course they died. They took a lot of Nazis with them, but people asked the question over and over and over again, why was it that so many of the Jews went with such ease? They complied. They never seemed to resist being taken away and then being taken out and either shot or gassed or whatever it was. It seemed that there was, from those Jews, there was very little to no resistance.
That's a very good question, and that is a fact what you are saying. The only thing what I can say, during that time I was age 12, 13 and so forth, and what I remember hearing from my parents, it was inconceivable anything like that to happen, and unfortunately it did. Well, now with history behind us, we have to be careful, and we have to do everything, and we cannot trust other people. They promise you anything, their mouth keep on moving. Does it mean what they say is correct? No. Lies can come up from everywhere. Whatever it's media, whatever it's other people, we cannot believe it. We have to be realistic. We have to have the map of past history in front of us to make sure we don't make the same mistakes again.
And that probably is the main message that I guess you want to get out, is that we made mistakes in history, a lot of people, but certainly when we're talking about the Jews in Europe not either fleeing soon enough or fighting and resisting, that is a lesson that Jews certainly have to learn today.
Yes, better shake up and better look at history, because at that time we didn't have that behind us. Now we have the Holocaust behind us. And yes, it can happen again if we let it happen. And we must not rely on other people. We have to rely on our own smartness. We have to rely on our own capability and be strong and do the right decision. Of course, what is the right decision? It's up to your heart. And sometimes you have to make decisions instantly, because seconds can save life also.
Last question. You mentioned that you encountered about 4 deniers at one time, but aside from those 4 deniers, what has the reception been for you and in schools and in organizations that you've talked in front of?
It all has been positive. We have been speaking, like I said, so many over 1,000 times in people who have attended, and we kept a pretty good record of it, over 250,000 people. At home, we have way over 12,000 letters. I never had one negative of all these years. Wherever I speak, people hug me, like today. Boys, girls, they lined up, they hugging me with tears in their eyes, and I do know I hit it home, because righteousness, humanity, and love will always conquer. but we cannot close our eyes against evil. Evil is everywhere.
Well, you're an amazing human being, and you certainly are someone that we've got to be able to look to, not only in your books, but hear you in lectures as well, and recognize your strength that's kept you going all these years, and your determination to be able to get the true story out about the Holocaust, and the message of making sure it never happens again, to either, if leave early enough or fight, but to never allow ourselves again to be put in a position of just being taken away. And as you said, never again, never, never again. Stephen Nasser, author of My Brother's Voice, How a Young Hungarian Boy Survived the Holocaust, a true story. Mr. Nasser, thank you very much for speaking to me today.
Thank you very much for having me, and I wish my listeners, or our listeners, a great life. Believe in God, do the right thing, and again, remember, love is stronger than hate. So put hatred away, and we will have a better life.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.